Hi there, I'm Ulf at HoboRec. Today we're going to keep talking about releasing your music on vinyls. I did a video recently about a couple of reasons why you should consider releasing the music on vinyl, and that video wasn't necessarily about actually doing it. It was more like the concept of a vinyl LP and how that might help organizing your songs on an album. I got a lot of questions for that video about if the market of vinyls are not dead, and also more practical on how to actually release your music on vinyl. So I thought I'm going to talk a little bit about those two things today. No, vinyls are not a dying market. It's quite the opposite, actually. It's been increasing a lot. I'm not exactly sure why that is, but I think it has something to do with nostalgia and also kind of a counter reaction maybe to streaming, that people want to have physical copies of their music. And if you watch movies and series, you can see there's a lot of vinyl players and stuff in the background nowadays. Maybe it's kind of a trend, but it's an ongoing trend, because in 1993, in America, I'm going with American sales here, it's easier to have a reference point, but in 1993 there were 300,000 sold vinyls in USA, and in 2019 you have 18 million, and that's an increase of almost 6,000%. Now I'm not that great at math, but I'm pretty sure that's an accurate percentage amount there. And even last year, the first half of 2020, the vinyl sales surpassed the sales of CDs. I'm not sure if that says more about vinyls or about CDs. That's the first time since the early 90s, and I think, yeah, that's probably around 1993 then. So just for some comparisons, we're going to keep talking about the first half of 2020 here, because that's the numbers I have. I'm going to link some articles in the description so you can check those the numbers for yourself. So in the first half of 2020, vinyl sales accounted for $232 million, CDs accounted for $130 million, and digital sales accounted for $351 million. So you see, vinyls are not that far off. But also to keep in mind here, we don't talk about streaming here. Streaming is obviously totally different beast. But when you talk about physical sales, vinyls are up there, and it's probably here to stay, because that curve has been consistent. And for you and me as like DIY underground musicians, this is both good and bad. The good thing is that the vinyl pressing plants are probably not dying out. The bad thing is that the waiting time for pressing vinyls can be kind of ridiculous these days. I mean, 10 years ago you could get your press in a couple of weeks, now it can take months, depending on what pressing plant you choose. I know I have talked about it before, but I feel kind of lucky to work with bands in kind of a punk metal genre that usually release their albums on vinyl. That means that I can have a cool collection of physical copies of my work, instead of just randomly looking it up on iTunes or Spotify or stuff like that. So I can sit down, have a look, check the liner notes and the credits, and be a bit proud of the work I've done. And I might be a bit old and backwards in this, but for me, I can't really take a band as serious if they only release their music on streaming and not on a physical copy. I'm not sure if that has something to do with that anyone can release their music on digital, like streaming, like Spotify or Bandcamp and stuff like that. It's open for everyone. But if you're going to release it on vinyl, that's kind of a bigger step, and you have to actually believe in the music you do, and believe that you can also sell those copies if you want to make that kind of investment. And just to be fair, this is of course also a bit genre dependent. I mean, a lot of modern pop music, or a lot of music overall, where you just focus on releasing singles and stuff these days, and not so much albums, then of course it doesn't make sense to release it on vinyl, if you're not going to just make a collection of singles and like release it as sort of a collection thing for your true fans. So how do you go about actually releasing your stuff on vinyl? Yeah, it's as simple as hiring a pressing plant to do it, actually. You just take your songs, send it off to a pressing plant, and let them do the rest. The only thing you need to think about when doing this is that you need a specific master for releasing on vinyl. Usually if you make a decent master for digital streaming, it will work for vinyl as well. Most pressing plants offer vinyl specific mastering. It costs a bit extra, or you can hire me. I made a bunch of masters for vinyl. All the vinyls I've done turned out really good, so I'm confident that I can pull that off. As long as you don't send off super loud brick wall limited mixes to the pressing plant, and as long as they sound good, you should be good to go. I'm gonna give you 4 links here to places that I have personally used, that I have good experience with. So the first one is mobeneco.com. It's a company based in UK, I think. As far as I know, they make all the printing stuff, the covers and things in Taiwan, and I think they use a vinyl pressing plant in France. They used to have a pressing plant in Germany, but they moved it to France 5 years ago, or something like that. The other one is X Vinyl X. They are based in Germany, and I think they use a pressing plant in Czech Republic. We also have Pirates Press, based in the USA. They have some really good deals. They offer flexi discs, which is pretty cool. If you just want to make like promotional material, you can make it in the size of a postcard and send it out, which is kind of expensive, but a cool PR thing to do. I believe they also use the pressing plant in Czech Republic, but if you are American, and I think it's easier to deal with an American company for this, so in that case, go with Pirates Press. We also have a pressing plant here in Sweden called Spin Road Factory. They have really good prices, and they're also really fast on delivery if you compare to the bigger ones. So if you're in Sweden, I recommend using them. How much does it cost to press a vinyl? Depending on what supplier you choose, it might differ a little bit, but not too much. And I'm gonna assume that you are a DIY band that wanted to do this, because if you are a signed band to a label, you wouldn't worry about this stuff anyway. I can just use an example that we used for my band for the last album we released. We made 300 copies. That will be, depending on what supplier you use, that will be about $1,500 to $2,000. And that might seem like a lot of money, but compared to what it costs to record an album, get it mixed and stuff like that, it's not too bad, I think. But I mean, on top of that, it's kind of an investment. But you can do what we did. You can set up a pre-order thing. If you manage to scrape together like 100 pre-orders, you pretty much paid for the whole thing. You don't have to put out a single hard-earned dollar on it on your own. Then we come to the next kind of question in this equation, that if you don't believe you can get 100 pre-orders for this, then maybe you should hold off a little bit. Keep release your stuff on cheaper media. Try to gain more listeners, gain more fans, until you are confident that you can sell all those albums. Because if you don't believe you can sell them, there's no point in putting that money into pressing a vinyl. But when you do, and you believe you can, I actually think it's a great thing. You will signal to your listeners that you take yourself serious. You have a really nice piece of merchandise that you can sell, aside from t-shirts and stuff like that. And there are also some magazines and stuff that only make reviews for actually released vinyls. You have an in those channels too, which can be really good. That's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. And as I said before, if you have any further questions or comments or things you want to add to this for other people viewing this video, feel free to just write stuff in the comments. I will try to hang out and answer and contribute as much as I can. See you next week. Bye bye. Cheers.